Hi everyone! So we're starting this video out today a little bit differently, as I'm sure you can tell by the fact that I am sitting in my car. So full disclosure, this is a 2-video filming day for me, and I did just finish filming the first video, which was a plant shop tour for you guys, and by the time you're watching this video, that will have already aired, so I will link it down in the description for you if you haven't checked that out yet. But while I was heading home to film our next video, I got a notification from the post office that I have mail, and I happen to know for a fact that it is Planty mail. And this, honestly, you guys, is a big deal for me because one of you sent me this Planty mail, and you reached out to me, let me know it was coming, and to let me know that it was one of my wish list plants. So not only am I getting a wish list plant for free from one of you guys today, but honestly, this is the first mail of any kind I have received from one of my subscribers, and that's a big deal for me. It's a really, really big deal. So I'm gonna head inside real quick and grab the package. We're then gonna head back to my house and I am going to open that up and show you what's inside. And then after that, I am in need of repotting the 2 pothos that I own that I have been in the process of rehabbing. So we're gonna repot those together today. We do have a few other things we're gonna be doing with them as well while we're repotting them. And I'm basically also just going to be giving you a little bit of an update on how they're doing and a recap of everything I've done in order to rehab them and get them to the point they're at today. Okay guys, let's get this box open so I can show you what I got. And while I'm opening this, just so you guys know, the person who sent this to me actually lives in Hawaii. So this is going to be my first official Hawaiian plant. And I was just, once again, I teared up when I got the email from this person, and I don't know if they want me to share their name or not. So I'm not gonna say anything, you know, if they want me to share it, if you're watching this, let me know and I can post a comment to this video and let everybody know who you are. But yeah, so this person sent me a very nice email. I did tear up at one point in it because they were giving me all these well wishes about how great I was and how they were really hoping everything would turn around with my job loss and everything. And I would find something that is fulfilling and makes me happy and brings in all the moolah, I believe is how they phrased it. And just a very, very nice person, very generous of them to send this. I mean, they I think priority mailed this from Hawaii. I don't even want to know what the shipping on that is, but I was very touched, and thank you again. I already said it in my emails back and forth with you, but thank you again so much for this. So I have it open. We've got some cotton stuff I'm going to take out of here. And let's see. Oh, there's a card. Okay, so I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but it does end with, the universe is very yin-yang. I'm sure life will shine bright on you. Much aloha. So, once again, very sweet. I'm going to try not to tear up again right now. So let me get the plant out of here. They did a lovely job, it looks like, packaging this. So here we are. And so, see if I can get a bunch of masking tape. Maybe I can just peel it off instead of having to cut into it. Why is masking tape so hard to get off? I would think it would be a little bit easier. We're almost there. Okay, here we go, you guys. I'm so excited. I am so excited. Okay, big reveal. I really shouldn't be doing this on my rug. Let me big reveal over here and then show you after I get the cotton off. Ooh, okay. I'm gonna go rinse this off real quick. There is a rather sizable spider crawling around on there, and he's kind of creeping me out. So 1 second. Sorry about that, you guys, but I was not expecting a spider of that size when I opened this, and he had spun webs all over the leaves, and some of the substrate was stuck to the webs on the leaves, and the whole thing looked dirty, and you wouldn't have been able to see its full beauty if I hadn't gone and washed it off. But this is a very, very beautiful Mandula Pothos. So Epipremnum Mandula, absolutely love it. I have wanted one for so long and I am so excited to now finally have one. And oh my gosh, I think this spider had babies. There is like a baby spider now crawling around on this. Whew. Hopefully no more spiders are gonna come out of here. But you know, the good news is if any other pests happen to have hitched a ride, the spiders hopefully ate them all. But once again, super excited to have this. Now, I do know both from the person who sent this to me as well as other people I've talked to that these can be a very slow growing plants. I was planning on letting it trail. I have heard that they tend to grow more quickly if you give them a pole, but I'm not sure. I think we'll start without a pole. Right now, we're just gonna worry about getting it acclimated since, you know, it's been in a box for a few days traveling from Hawaii. So we're gonna put this in, I think I might put it in the IKEA cabinet first just because it is coming from like a very humid place to, I mean, my humidity in my house right now is pretty decent. Honestly, you guys, it's been decent this week because we've kind of warmed up. We've had some rain, but still it's not going to be as high as it was in Hawaii. So I think I will probably put this guy in the IKEA cabinet for at least probably a week just to kind of acclimate a bit. And this soil is pretty wet. And I know you can see there's sphagnum moss on top, but I think that's just a dressing on top probably to help keep the soil in place during shipping, because I'm looking underneath here and it's definitely not all sphagnum. It looks like it's a pretty well mixed, you know, potting soil with perlite, chunky enough for this plant. So, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so excited. Okay, so newest pothos to the collection, and now I want to move on to the two pothos that I had been rehabbing. And so those were my Epipremnum pinnatum Cebu blue and my Scindapsus Pictus Argyraeus. Yes, Argyraeus. I swear, you guys, I used to be able to call up Argyraeus for the Scindapsus and Argyraea for the peperomia all the time without questioning myself, and now I question myself every time I say it. But the Argyraeus. So both of these, if you don't recall the backstory, or if you're new here, once again, welcome. Both of these, when I bought them, were hardly rooted cuttings in a 6-inch pot with way too much soil for the amount of roots that were on the plant. They both were in bad soil types as well. They were from completely different growers, so this wasn't even a case of that one grower that you guys know I don't like because they have a tendency to do these things. So that was not the case. These were from 2 local nurseries as well, not big box stores or anything like that. But I did end up having to rehab them because they both did end up getting a little bit of root rot because I honestly waited to repot them after I bought them, and I shouldn't have. So once again, you guys, I have told you before, it is always wise to let your plants acclimate before repotting them when you buy them and bring them home. However, that is merely a guideline to follow in most situations. Certain situations require desperate measures, as it were, and so this was one of those situations where I should have repotted them right away because they weren't in the right type of soil, and if I had repotted them right away to get them in the right type of soil, I would have discovered that they were barely rooted in the first place and in way too big of a pot. So we went through a massive rehab on these plants, and they have survived. They are thriving. I'm going to get them here in a second and kind of show you what's going on. So I will talk you through everything I did, but they are so root bound right now that they both need to be repotted. So we are going to repot them while I kind of talk about that with you. And then I'm also going to talk to you, or actually we're going to do some things in addition to these plants, because problem is I lost quite a few of the cuttings because of the root rot situation and having to repot them and rehab them. So these plants got a lot smaller, and so I want to make them bigger and fuller, and so we're going to do some things to do that today. But let me grab the Cebu blue off the shelf first and kind of show you how root bound it is, and then we'll take a look at the Scindapsus Pictus Argyraeus. Okay guys, so not really thinking yesterday when I was watering plants, I watered the Cebu blue. In hindsight, I shouldn't have watered it because I was planning on repotting it today, but it's been a crazy few days. I've been like a little bit all over the place, and yeah, anyways, I don't know what I was thinking, but that's okay. I have a workaround for the fact that this thing is very wet, so that'll be another learning experience for you today as well. All right, so let me see if I can get you up in here so you can see all of those roots. Look how many roots are in there. Ignore this leaf. We'll talk about that in a bit while we're repotting. But yeah, these roots are all tangled up in here. They are coming pretty high up into the top of the pot at this point. So I feel okay repotting this guy, but we are not going to take this up into too much bigger of a pot. And once we move into the kitchen, since that's where we'll be repotting, I'll show you what size we're gonna go into. But let me go ahead and set this guy in the kitchen, and I'm gonna grab the Scindapsus out of the kitchen to show you what those roots look like. Okay. Oh, I just have to laugh, you guys. Sometimes I just have to laugh. Apparently I also watered this one yesterday. Also not thinking about the fact that I was gonna be repotting it today, and honestly, I didn't even remember that I had watered it until I just picked it up. I swear, I need to get my head screwed back on straight, you guys. Okay, so we are in a very shallow pot for this one because I find rehabbing Scindapsus to be a lot trickier than rehabbing Epipremnums. Once again, technically, these are all commonly referred to as pothos, even though none of them are actually technically pothos in terms of being in the pothos genus. I'll do a future video explaining the whole history behind pothos and why so many things are called pothos. But this Scindapsus is actually, I feel like the Argyraeus are a little bit more tolerant than like the Exoticas or the bigger leaf Scindapsus. They're definitely more tolerant than the Trubii Scindapsus. But in general, I find Scindapsus to be a lot more difficult to rehab. I find them to be a lot more difficult to propagate. They tend to take way longer to root in general. So I put this one in a much shallower pot because I was really worried about rot situation. And I'm glad I did because it seems to have been loving it to the point where we are so freaking root bound. You see all of those roots wrapped around in the bottom there, nice white roots. It is like that all the way around there, and they are starting to actually come up towards the surface where it almost looks like they're going to like breach the surface of the soil. So that's why I want to go ahead and repot this one. And because it's in such a shallow pot, what I am likely going to do for this one is I'm just going to put it in a deeper pot, not in necessarily a wider pot, because honestly, if I go wider and deeper, that might be a bit too much soil around this plant for the amount of roots it has. But we're gonna take a look, like I said, at the pots that I think we're gonna go into once we get in the kitchen. And honestly, I don't know why we're still sitting here. Let's go ahead and move in there. Okay, you guys, so change of plans. We are going to be using these 6-inch clear pots for both of these plants because the pot that I thought I was gonna be able to use for the Scindapsus, the one that was deeper but not wider, turns out it's narrower than the pot that the Scindapsus is already in. So that's not gonna work. I mean, I might just not fill it as much for that one, but we'll see. Now, I mentioned the fact that I was gonna have to do a little bit of a workaround because of the fact that I had watered those plants yesterday. So what I did was I have my Epiphyte mix ready to go here. I moistened this down. Now, I didn't make it sopping wet. It is definitely quite damp though, at least to the level of the substrate that they're already in, and they are already in my Epiphyte mix. But this way, at least it won't be wet substrate surrounded by dry substrate, because that's never a good thing, and then you're just left wondering when the heck should I actually water this. But let's go ahead and get started, and I think we're gonna start with, let's start with the Cebu blue. So, looking lovely, and we have our one super long vine here, and honestly there is one other super long vine here, and let me see. Yeah, it hasn't started to root yet. So a couple days ago actually I pinned one of the other longest vine across the top here because once again I do want these plants to get fuller because I did have quite a bit of just lost cuttings, but then also when they were rehabbing we had lost leaves. And honestly, you guys, that's what's happening right here. This is the only like old leaf that's still left. And so it has just decided that it is reaching the end of its leaf life. It is not being caused by anything else. But we have tons of new growth, so that's okay. And I've already once before, well, actually twice before, I have draped vines across this. And one of them, let me find the edge of it for you. Okay, so get this out of my way. You can see in here, there is a bobby pin. So a while back, I bobby pinned this longest vine that is right here, this long vine. I bobby pinned it across the surface, and then I waited for it to develop a root. And so I don't know if you guys can see, but right there is a root growing out of this stem going into that soil. And so once that got long enough to where I could tug and I could tell that this vine wasn't going to come out, I cut it off. So that was about 2 weeks ago, I believe. Now, where I cut it, let me find the other end. Oh, we are tangled here. Let me get untangled here. Okay, so here now you guys can see this is where I made the cut. So this was connected to this. I snipped that off. This crazy long vine now will keep growing on its own because it had rooted. But now where we cut it here, you can see is already started to develop new growth as well. 2 growth points actually, one here and one here. So this will continue to grow and now be a long vine as well. So this is my preferred method for making plants like this fuller. Honestly, I think it's the easiest way. You don't have to worry about, you know, if you're planting other cuttings back in there, you don't have to worry about if those roots are going to rot because they don't have as many roots as this does, or are they too small for the pot, or whatever it may be. Did you get it potted deep enough so that it's not drying out more quickly than the rest of the plant? All those fun things go away when you use this bobby pinning method. So that's what I've been doing with this one. This one over here, I bobby pinned at the same time as that one, but last time I checked, it had not rooted. Let's see. Yeah, it still hasn't rooted, so we're just gonna leave that one like that for now. And then, like I said, I had just recently draped that other one across, so we're gonna re-drape it across again after we get this repotted. And I'm just gonna be very careful with this, you guys. I'm not gonna break up any substrate or anything like that. We're just, because it's in the same type of substrate we're going into, right? So we're just gonna take it out, put it in, and proceed forward from there. And so let me go ahead and grab our pot again. This guy over here, and we're gonna start adding our mix into the bottom of this. Now, this is almost the same height as this, so there's gonna be barely any soil in the bottom of this, but that's fine because there'll be plenty of room to the sides for this plant to continue to spread its roots. So while I'm doing this, let's go back to the beginning. So when I started rehabbing these, I did not put these in water. Now I have done some rehabs in the past, like that Scindapsus Trubii Moonlight, where honestly you guys actually tried to keep that one in soil like I did with these ones when I started rehabbing it, and everything just started rotting and dying. So I moved it to water and yeah, had no luck with that. That plant is now gone. But these plants, I just down potted them into smaller pots and put them in better soil, gave them plenty of light, and that worked fine. Now, when you do that, once again, you will still experience some loss typically. And as long as it's not like everything's dying off, then it's not really anything much to worry about. Just keep an eye on it. And I also put them in the clear pots so that I could keep an eye on the roots, make sure it didn't look like anything was rotting, make sure everything looked healthy, like the roots were actually starting to grow and everything. So I really do advise like clear pots. And these aren't even pots, you guys. These are food containers that I repurposed as pots by using my soldering iron to put holes into the bottom of them so that they had drainage. But it's definitely helpful when you're rehabbing plants to be able to see the roots. I'm gonna try to loosen this up a little bit here and get this out and into this new pot. All right. And I'm probably gonna make a mess, but once again, I've kind of gotten to that point where I'm like, oh well, I'm gonna make a mess, I'm gonna make a mess. We are losing a lot of substrate here, come on. All right, I'm gonna see if I can give him a nudge through the drainage hole with my chopstick to maybe start to move. Those roots are really tight in there. I really don't want to have to cut this pot off, but I might have to. There we go. Woo! Look at all of those roots right there. Look at that. Definitely needs to be repotted. I can also, where the substrate fell off on the top here, I can see roots now up here. So definitely good that we are doing this now. I probably have way too much mix in here now because all the stuff fell off the top into here. So let me just go ahead and dig some of that back out of there. Okay, get this guy positioned in here. And like I said, your hands are just gonna get super messy if you are in a situation like I am where, you know, shouldn't have watered this yesterday, but it's okay. Make sure we get all our leaves out of the way so they aren't getting buried. Make sure this guy is nice and centered. Can't believe how many roots are just wound around in there. It's crazy, you guys. Ugh, part of me is like, should I take him up into anything even bigger? No, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. I'll have to repot him sooner because I'm not taking him into something bigger, but I would rather do this and know that, you know, we're gonna be okay and not end up in a root rot situation or anything than go into a bigger pot and potentially have a problem. I'm gonna try to remove the bobby pin from that one vine that's already rooted in there because I don't think it needs it anymore. Okay guys, I just went and rinsed my hands off because I think I'm gonna be able to just use my tiny shovel here to shovel this in around the sides, and it's gonna be easier than trying to use my fingers, and also it'll keep me from getting my hands quite as dirty. So we're just gonna start filling in around here. And so yeah, this plant, honestly, I feel like did a little bit better on the rehab situation, bounced back more quickly, didn't lose as many cuttings or as many leaves as the Scindapsus that we're going to be repotting next, but it did still have some loss, like I said. But all in all, pretty impressed with how it has sprung back. And like I said, I did down pot both of these plants when I did that rehab situation. And honestly, you guys, down potting is one of the biggest things that you can do to help save a plant when something has gone wrong with the roots. So even if it's a plant that you've had for a while and, you know, something happened and it got root rot and now you're having to try to rescue it and you've treated it for root rot, you've removed all of the rotted roots that were there, and now you're left with like a way smaller root system, definitely downsize the plant to a smaller pot. It is one of the easiest things you can do to help rescue a plant. I kid you not. And I mean, even if you're saying like, I've got this pot and all the roots that are left on that plant are pretty jumbled in here to the point where you're like, well, it almost looks root bound. Just do it. Just do it. Those roots are going to need to recover, and having them in any kind of excess soil is potentially going to cause that rot to come back. So once again, one of the best tips I can give you in terms of rescuing plants which have root problems. But let's get back to shoveling in here. And right now, this plant has been enjoying life on one of the shelves above the couch in my living room. It does get a little bit of direct light each day, but before I had it on that shelf, you guys, it was on one of the shelves behind the couch, so it was getting direct light every single day, and it was fine with it. It's honestly been okay as well getting less direct light up on that shelf, but I mean, either way, it was happy. We didn't have any problems with burnt leaves or anything like that. Okay, I've just about got this filled in. Just a little bit more over here on this side. I'm just gonna lightly kind of tamp it down. Normally what I would do if this wasn't wet is I would just kind of tap it to get it to go down, but because it's wet, it's not gonna like sift down as easily. So I'm just gonna very lightly, like I said, tamp it down. I'm not gonna pack it in or anything like that. And then if it looks like I need to add a little bit more, which it does, I will just add that little bit more. All right, I think that'll do it. So now I just want to get this pinned back across, like I said, so that we can A, not have crazy long vines because they were about to touch the couch, and B, so that we can fill this in some more. And so also, you guys, I actually have never propagated this plant. So this is all the growth since I started rehabbing it. And I'll flash up on screen for you guys when I started rehabbing it because I got to go back and check my notes. It's been quite a while. I mean, it took a while to kind of develop its roots first and then start to grow like mad, which is now what it's doing. So let's go ahead. Which one? Let's see. Which one did I have? I think I had redraped the one that I cut off recently, which is, where is it? This one was the one that I had draped across that we unpinned before we started repotting. So let's do this one first. Now, when you are doing this, a couple of things. Never force your vines, right? What I usually do is I pick it up and I'm just like, okay, where are my aerial roots? So we have aerial roots coming all the way up on this side of the vine. So if I try to twist it this way and it wants to flip this way, I'm not going to pin it there because that's telling me like it's going to fight where I pinned it and it's probably going to have a harder time rooting down in. So you kind of want to just find a spot where it will naturally lay and where it will naturally bend, because you can see here, like if I did it here, That's how wide I would have to do the bend, because if I went any tighter than this, I might snap it. But if you can see over here, it naturally wants to bend right here in a pretty tight fashion anyway. So that's the part that I'm gonna let bend. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. And then you just gotta kind of move leaves around, and then wherever it wants to lay is where it wants to lay. And you can kind of direct the other end of it to whatever area you want, but whatever node it is that wants to come into contact, that's just like, the plant makes that decision. Don't try to force it. You just find the area that it wants to lay, and then that's where you're gonna pin it. So I'm gonna reuse that bobby pin that we took off of the other one earlier here. And we're just gonna stick that down in there. Now, if you do find you're meeting resistance, in this particular case, it's probably a big piece of bark, because this is the epiphyte mix that we're using. Just kind of take it in and out until you can get it down in there. But your goal is to get where that aerial root is wanting to start in contact with the soil. So we have successfully done that with that vine. So once that is fully rooted, I will cut that vine off probably right here below this leaf. Is that actually part of that? No, right here below this leaf. And then from this part, this will trail off this side and start to develop new growth. So then we'll have a vine going that way and a vine going this way versus just one going that way. So let's see if we can do this with this other really long vine too, because like I said, I would rather do this than cut and propagate back into the top. So this one is wanting, let me spin this around. Now this one has kind of a natural bend right here that's pretty tight. Let's see if maybe we can just work off of that, maybe. Or maybe not. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to work off of that one, just because the way it's bending, if you can see, it's causing all of the aerial root points to stick upwards, and we need them to face downwards in order to grow into the soil. So it may be a situation where I have to go further down the vine to get it to pin into place, but we'll see. Okay, so the only place I think I'm gonna be able to pin this is actually towards the very end of it here, because this node actually has, oh, so does that node. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, all 5 of the latest nodes on here have the start of 2 aerial roots versus just 1. All the ones up here have just 1. So I think we're going to pin this one down over here on this side, because honestly, it's wanting to kind of lay on its side, but because it has the start of 2 aerial roots, even if it's on its side, one of those aerial roots should push in, because one of them will still be in contact with the soil. And I am going to drape this across where I cut the other vine off here, because that's going to help keep that secured as well, since it's not fully buried beneath the substrate. Where did I put my, aha, paper clip. Oh yeah. That is much better. And then I'm going to push some of that substrate up against where that aerial root, or those aerial roots, are starting, just to keep it nice and moist and encourage it to develop. Okay, so that is all we are going to do with this one. Honestly, I could cut this leaf off, but it's still green enough to photosynthesize, so I'm just going to leave it be. Once it gets more yellow, I will remove it, but for now it's not hurting anybody, as it were. I'm not sure where it wants to sit right now. Now that's the other thing is, you know, you might need to maneuver your leaves after you pin things down, and they may look a little jumbled up and weird on top, but that's fine, because this is just an intermediary step in order to get this plant to look more full. But as you can see here, we definitely aren't going to be trailing the couch now. Once again, where we looped it, it's going to look a little funky for a while, but it's not that bad, you guys, not that bad. But right now I'm going to set this one aside, and we're going to start in on the Scindapsus. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put some of our mix down in the bottom here. And I think I might have actually mixed up enough mix today, you guys, without having to make more. But we'll see. All right. Just filled in. And once again, I don't know if I'm going to go as like deep into this one, just because it's in such a shallow pot. But we'll see. You guys know how I am. I say this, and then once I get it out and I get it in there, I'm like, maybe it'll be okay, but it's just how I operate. It's not like I try this before I start filming. We're doing this together, so learn as we go. But real quick first, you can see here we do have now a couple of long vines, just like we did on the Cebu Blue, not quite as long, But once again, I want to try to use this to fill in the top. However, looking at this top looks pretty full. And I have pinned across at least once. I see one pin in there, and I don't know if it's rooted. Oh, it's one pin actually holding 2 vines in place. So we're gonna check and see also if those have rooted it at all or not. Now, once again, you guys, with Scindapsus, takes way longer to root, and I know I pinned those way long time ago before I ever did the pinning on the Cebu blue, so theoretically you would think they would be rooted by now, but once again, Scindapsus, so who knows. But let's go ahead and try to get this plant out and in here, and then we'll kind of see if those are rooted, and we'll assess if we're gonna be able to drape any more across there, because like I said, looking at the top of this, it's pretty full looking right now. And hopefully this one comes out a little bit easier than the last one. I think I'm gonna move this, and I'm going to do it over the mix so that anything that falls off the top is not overfilling our pot that we just prepped. This is also a much more pliable container, so way easier to kind of squeeze everything loose than the last one we did. See if it will come out fairly easily or not. And I'm trying not to tug, you guys. I'm trying to just see if maybe it'll fall out. Oh yes, this one's going to come out way easier. Sweet, but also, oh my gosh, those roots. Why do I always do this? I tilt it to the wrong side where you guys can't see it. Look at that. Look at those roots. Oh, so white, so healthy, but this plant is going to be so much happier in a bigger pot where it can spread around more. So slide that back over, get our pot back over here. Let me see. Oh yeah, I think that depth is going to be just fine, you guys, and I am feeling better about this now that I'm just fling dirt everywhere, but I am feeling better about this now that I actually have it in here and I can see, and it's not, you know, it's not overkill to have it in this pot. And so that's actually a pretty decent level right there. I mean, it's not as high as the other one was, but honestly, the other one, if I had my way, would not be filled all the way to the top like that. But like I said, the pot that we took the other one out of was almost the same height as the pot we were going into, so I didn't have much choice. So this one, I think this is perfect. And so we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna start filling this in around the sides. And once again, I'm just gonna use my tiny shovel here because it's just gonna be easier to get this down in that space than trying to do it with my hands anyway. And we do have a leaf here that it looks like it's starting to yellow, and you can see it's kind of curled, so we're probably about to lose this leaf, but no big deal. It's one of the ones that's pretty low down on the vine, so it's probably just dying of natural old leaf age, as it were. So as far as this plant goes, this plant is currently living in my kitchen window, which is a west-facing window, but before that, I also had it on the shelves behind the couch where it was getting a ton of direct light. And once again, it was fine with it. And before that, I actually had it on the shelves, the shelf that the Cebu blue is on, well, was on right before this, above the couch. The one closest to the window is where I had this one before I moved it to behind the couch and then into the kitchen. And so that's where it was when it was rehabbing for the most part. So it was getting some direct light, but not like all the time. And I definitely think having that brighter level of light really helped to rehab it because it gave it enough energy and everything to really work on producing those roots. And then once it got rooted, producing a bunch of new foliage. But once again, definitely took quite a bit longer to do than the Cebu blue. And I did the rehabbing, we started it at the same time on both plants. And so that's what I'm saying. Scindapsus are a lot like slower to come back from things. They're a lot slower to just root propagate in general, at least in my experience. If you guys have had a different experience, please comment down below and let us know. But this is my personal experience. This is how it's been. And another thing that you guys probably ought to take note of, for whatever reason, you know, Scindapsus curl. They like to curl when they're thirsty. They like to curl when they're not happy for whatever reason. And they tend to take forever to uncurl. So if you have a Scindapsus that's totally curly because you forgot to water it, you can water it and you can wait for like a week or 2 weeks and it's still gonna be curled up. It just is how these plants do. It's not like your Epipremnums where when they are thirsty, they get droopy. And then the second you water them, it's like 2 minutes later, they've like perked back up. It's just not how it works with Scindapsus. And so for example, this leaf over here that is curled, it's been like this since I started rehabbing this plant. It just never uncurled, but the leaf is fine. I mean, it's fine, the plant is fine. But for whatever reason, nope, it's just gonna stay curly. So keep that in mind when you're trying to assess what might be going on with the Scindapsus. And if you think that it is curling its leaves for a specific reason and you do something to fix it and the leaves don't uncurl right away, or perhaps never uncurl, doesn't mean that you didn't actually fix the problem. It's a very tricky plant to read sometimes, you guys. But once again, that's where I think using clear pots comes in handy, because these plants, as you saw, have very, very white roots. They tend not to take on a brown color like on the Epipremnum. The Epipremnums, I find the roots start to look brown, and I think it's just they're getting stained from the soil. But for whatever reason on Scindapsus, all of my Scindapsus, like the roots are whiter than white. So having that clear pot is definitely a good indicator that if you thought something was going wrong with the plant and it hasn't uncurled its leaves, but you can see that those roots look white, healthy, and happy, and you know that it's getting enough light and whatnot, then odds are everything's fine. Those leaves are just doing their leafy thing and not wanting to uncurl. All right, but I think we just gotta get a little bit more in on this side, and then we will be done filling this guy in. Okay, I think that's good. So let's see. Let's take a look at our vines, and let me see if I can figure out if we have actually rooted where I pinned before or not. Telling you guys, I'm pretty sure probably not, or maybe. We might be rooted. Let me take the bobby pin out and we'll see for sure. Somebody's sticking somewhere, or maybe it's just because these leaves are tangled up. Let's see here. Okay, well, this top one definitely was not rooted. So let me move that one and let me see if I can. Are you rooted or are you just stuck on other leaves? I think this is just stuck on other leaves. Oh, nope, it's rooted, you guys. There is a root going down into the soil, so I'm not going to tug on that anymore. I don't know how far down that root is going, but that means that we can actually cut that one. So let me go grab my snips. Okay, so I wish I knew like how rooted it was, but there's no real good way to know. But let me see how much vine we have on the end that's going across. Rotate this around, see if you guys can see better here. Okay, so I'm pretty sure it's rooted right here. What I'm probably going to do then is I'm going to cut right here so that this vine can then go this direction. And then we'll see about still redraping this really long one that is part of this back across again. And we're just going to hope that that root is pretty well developed. So here goes nothing. Okay, so now try to get this vine back out of here so it can trail off the side of this away and it will start to grow some more. All right, so because I'm not 100% how rooted that is, I am going to go ahead and pin it back down just in case, so it doesn't, the weight of the vine doesn't accidentally pull it out, as it were, just to be on the safe side, because I really have no clue. Because it isn't, when I'm tugging, it's staying put, but it honestly doesn't feel as tight as the one that I knew was rooted on the Cebu blue. So it makes me nervous, you guys. It just makes me nervous. So I'm going to just repin it there for now. What is this thing doing? Okay, we've got like a part of a cutting or something that's just sticking up there. It's rooted. It's not where we just cut. Okay, I'm not sure. I think maybe the vine that I had pinned down was holding this other cutting in place, and now it's trying to like pop up. So I'm trying to get that kind of tucked back away in there. Kind of odd. Okay, I'm not sure why that was popping up. Oh. Okay, so that is part of the other long vine that I had draped across the surface that had not actually rooted down in yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and repin this one down because obviously it is trying to pop that other end back up. So I'm just gonna repin it how it was before. Man, do you see this, you guys? Like the bottom of this one is just trying to pop up. So that's very frustrating. Dig a little hole. We can't get it down in there. Cover it back up, and then I'm just gonna pin that one down. Hold on, let me go get a smaller paper clip to pin that one part down. That's so weird. I guess maybe it wasn't popping up before because I had the other end of that vine pinned down and it was helping keep it in place. I don't know, but we're gonna pin it down. Okay, got a paper clip and I've got it opened up. Just get this down in here. All right, I dug a hole, stuck it in there, pinned it. Now I'm gonna fill in because that shouldn't be popping that high up at the surface level there, you guys. Once again, not really sure what the deal is there, but it's okay. I just want to make sure it's buried because that is the bottom point of this really long, beautiful vine. So I don't want it to keep popping up and, I don't know, get pulled out, die, whatever bad thing might happen. Probably overreacting, but whatever. Okay, but I do still want to try and pin this one back down across again. And hopefully this time it will root. It does not look like it had even attempted to try to root yet. Ooh, no, that's not good. Oh, there's a tear in this one, you guys. Ooh, do y'all see that? I think we're gonna have to go ahead and make a cut. Oh, I don't wanna make a cut. Yeah, we're gonna have to cut it. I wondered why that spot was brown. It must have gotten bent at some point, maybe when I was doing the draping before, but I mean, it stayed alive. This is obviously not my ideal situation here. I'm just gonna cut it right here. So then this vine will continue to grow. And now the question is, what do I do with this? Because they take forever to root, you guys, even in water. Although honestly, I've never done the Argyraeus in water. I've only ever done the Exoticas and they take forever. Oh, I don't know. Okay, so since we have leggy growth here, so as you can see, like we have a lot of space in between where the leaves are. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this up, you guys. Let me move this out of the way for a second. And we're going to put this into some water, and then I will have to just kind of dig down once these have roots and stick them in there to kind of help fill this back in. It's very upsetting that that was messed up like that. Okay, well, I'm gonna keep these two leaves together. So we're just gonna cut right here. And we'll put that in water. Now I can put the bare nodes here. I can cut this and put it in water and it will root and potentially start to activate some growth points, but there's no guarantee, but I mean, we might as well just try it. But then I'm probably going to I'm gonna cut right here and I'm gonna put this one in water to do the roots for these two leaves. And we're gonna keep these two leaves together. So we're gonna cut right here. So there's those two. And then, you know what? I might just stick this whole one in water because if we're lucky, we'll get roots out of multiple nodes. So then I can put this one down in the middle and get it pretty deep and know that the roots are real far down in there. So I think that's what we're gonna do. And then this one, like I said, that has no leaves, we'll put it in water just to see what happens. So let me find something to put water in and we'll put these in there. All right, so I went ahead and grabbed one of the cuttings from my Marble Queen Pothos, which as you can see already has the start of a root. So it will be putting out those hormones that it puts out when it roots that tend to encourage other plants to root more quickly. And so we're just gonna, like I said, put these in here and then cross our fingers and hope that they actually root and root quickly. I'm telling you, Scindapsus, so slow, so slow. Although that new Mandula I hear is really slow as well. So I don't know how it compares to, say, a Scindapsus or not, if it's as slow or slower or less slow, but we will find out. All right, so I'm just gonna go put these above the kitchen sink in that west-facing window and we'll see what happens. Okay, in the meantime though, let's see if maybe we can drape this other vine back across the top here without feeling like we might accidentally snap anything. This vine over here is getting pretty long as well. So we could potentially pin this one down somewhere too. These are about the same length. I didn't even realize there was this longer one over here. This one, I'm just kind of, because it's just barely rooted, I'm kind of hesitant to try to twist it around. Yeah, I think I'm just going to leave this one. It feels a little bit stiff right now, and since it did just recently develop the new root over here where we pinned it down, make sure that's nice and tight down in there, but not too tight. That's the other thing. Be careful when you're pinning down that you don't press too hard that you snap a vine. That might be what happened to the one that we just had to address. So I'm gonna leave that one be. Let me see if maybe this one wants to drape across, because as you can see, now that we cut that one off and everything, there's a pretty big bald spot here in the middle. So let's see if we can get this one. to potentially want to lay somewhere. And like I said, I'm just kind of letting it tell me where it might be willing to go. And it looks like it might be willing to go right there. Let's see if we can go any further or not. No, we don't want to do anything else, but perhaps lay right there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to pin it in kind of pretty close to that one. Although that kind of worries me because right underneath that is where we pinned that other one down and buried it. All right, we're not going to pin this one, you guys. Tell you what. You know, things don't always go like you think they're going to go. Plans change. So we're going to let everybody just be. Where do you want to lay? There it goes. Okay, we're going to let everybody just kind of be where they want to be right now. And then once we, fingers crossed, hopefully get roots on the ones that we just put in water, what we'll do is we will strategically avoid this spot in the middle where we have that buried pinned one, and we will kind of go around it and plant in those cuttings, making sure that we get nice and deep, because if we don't and they have short roots, the problem is they're going to dry out too quickly before I need to water again. But right now I think we're doing pretty good. I'm happy we're in this bigger pot. Hopefully the plant will be happy it's in this bigger pot. But all in all, I'm really impressed with how these plants did with the rehabbing. I think they're both doing fabulous. I'm absolutely loving that they're picking up in their growth rate. And you know, eventually this one is supposed to be in the pot above the Monstera, but we've got to get quite a bit more full before we get to that point. But I hope you guys have enjoyed coming along with me on this little repot and update on these rehabbed pothos. If so, please be sure to click that like and or subscribe button down below. And I hope you enjoyed getting to come along with me as I unboxed my brand new Wishlist Pothos, which once again, thank you so much to the subscriber who sent that to me. I am so happy, and thank you so much for your kind words. I greatly appreciate it. And I will be certain to let you guys know how that plant does acclimating to my house, because my house is obviously quite different than Hawaii, but I'm sure it will be fine. But thanks again for joining me today, you guys, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Aloha!